Howdy y'all, and welcome to Craters Gaming. Today we're going to be making a haunted forest out of toilet paper, paint, and hot glue. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to it. To start off with, we're going to go ahead and cut these in half. I'm going to cut them irregular where it looks like they have broken apart in attempts to make them look a little bit more natural. And remember that it does not have to look perfect. Now we're going to go ahead and use a little bit of construction paper to kind of top these off. Now I did make a mistake with some of these. I ended up putting some at the bottom and I should have put them at the top instead. But the best thing that we can do is learn from our mistakes and move on. Yes, I realize that those are not perfectly circular, but you know what? It's okay. It doesn't have to be. We'll hide that with glue. Hot glue, that is. Like a glove. And on this one, I'm going to put the hot glue at the bottom side of it, although it doesn't really matter because I put that in the wrong spot like I mentioned earlier, but we're going to fix that. But even with that, it's okay if you have hot glue on the top because we're going to cover that up with flocking later. Some of our tree stumps I do want to look like monsters, so we're going to be using some wire that I bought at the Dollar Tree. Super cheap and super useful. And with this little monster, I want it to have hands, so I'm going to kind of manipulate the wire to where they do look like little hands. Rower. And I'm just going to reinforce the wire on the inside, so I have a little bit of hot glue inside, because I don't want it to move around a whole bunch once I start to paint later. And like I said earlier in the vid, I probably should have just capped the top instead of capping the bottom, but we're going to go ahead and fix that on this one real quick, and we won't make that mistake again. Since this is the first little tree monster that I made, this is perfect. It's okay to make mistakes as long as you learn from them. And this is a learning process, and there is no wrong or right way, really. And y'all have seen me do texture with hot glue before, and that's pretty much what I'm doing here. But I'm also beefing up the wire where it doesn't look like wire and make it look like he actually does have little limbs hanging out. So you'll see in the finished product of it. It looks a little sketchy right now, but it gets better. Just trying to make it not look so much like a toilet paper roll that it is. There is going to be a couple times where I forget that the hot glue is still hot and it catches on some things. It's okay, we'll fix it later, but it is kind of annoying when it happens. And since it's a monster, it needs eyes and a mouth, right? So guess what? Hot glue it is. Kind of reminds me of that spoon on Toy Story just a little bit. I can't be alone in this. There's got to be other people that think it too. And practice makes perfect, so this is the second little tree monster that I'm going to make. I'm going to do it with the same process, except for this time, I'm going to put the hole underneath where I put the piece of construction paper, and we're going to run the string through there. See, I do learn from my mistakes. Now, when trying to figure out a way to poke a hole in this, I did try a couple of different methods. Mr. Seam Ripper was the best choice because I am a seamstress for my real job, and it is handy. Just going to make it look like a little dude in the back, using the same wire. Cutting it to length, I'm also going to clip a couple more pieces to where I can make the hands just a little bit differently. Just trying out different methods. I may do this again later in another project. I have yet to decide. You will notice with this little monster dude that one side is a little longer, and I kind of realized that. It's like, oh well. He's a tree monster, so it comes the reason that one of his arms is going to be longer than the other. So it waits, and it stayed. I do bend the ends of the fingers on these. I think it helps whenever I try to put the hot glue on later. We all make mistakes. We're just going to twist that and pretend it didn't happen. Here's about where I found out that the arms aren't even. Have kind of an issue when it comes to things being even, but it works for this monster, so we're just going to leave it be. While I was making these, it kind of reminded me of a recent D&D game that I played with a friend where the apple orchard came alive and threw apples at people. It was pretty cool. Ironically enough, the DM that put on that game, these little trees are going to, where he can do it with his in-person game. After that's done, we're going to go ahead and grab our other 2 rolls that we have, and we're going to make them just regular tree stumps. Not all of them have to be monsters. And also learning from my mistakes and putting the hot glue towards the top where the construction paper will stop and won't go all the way through. In my forever fight with the stringies. The only drawback from using hot glue, besides the shininess of the glue itself, but at least you don't have to sit there and wait for it to dry. On these ones, I'm just making sure that it's in there nice and solid, and then I'm going to put a little bit more hot glue at the top to cover up the edges and to give it a bit more texture. Because I want these trees to have bases, I am using chipboard that I bought from Amazon. Although you probably can buy it from other hobby stores or craft stores, I just like getting it in bulk. Just shape the size or however you feel like doing it, and then glue your little monsters down. Rower. Now, for whenever I put these guys down, I am making it look like there's tree roots coming out, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to base these. Nothing says that you have to base these. If you don't have room for the bases, don't worry about the bases. Just keep them as is. It will also give your toilet paper roll a little bit more stability where it doesn't just flake off later. And shabooby, one done. Now, I won't bore y'all to death and do this for each and every one. I'm just going to do it for 2 of them and then move on. Because I imagine that it would be just as entertaining as watching paint dry, which is not fun at all. I'm just drawing lines with my hot glue gun and then using the side to kind of give it a bit more of a bark texture, which you'll see later when it comes to painting it. We're going to go ahead and pause the video right here to remind you that you can become a Patreon or buy us a coffee. All proceeds go towards furthering the channel and buying supplies. If you help out, you do get a shout out. I did forget to record me black bombing these, but I did give them a primer with black spray paint. We're going to go ahead and do another layer of nutmeg brown, and it comes off looking really, really bright, but don't worry, as it dries, it does get darker like with all acrylic paints. And this is the cheap of the cheap apple barrel from Walmart. They are a bit rough looking at this stage, but don't worry, it will look better once I put the khaki on it on the next step. Don't forget to get the top, and we're just going to get as much as possible. If you miss some places, it's fine. We're going to use some flocking later to cover up our boo-boos. And I don't know if y'all can tell, but I am using a different angle with my camera because I kept bumping it last time and it was driving me nuts. So if y'all like the new angle, please comment in the bottom and I will keep doing it from this side. If not, I'll try to find another spot. It almost looks like a mud monster at this point. Now I am slapping a little bit of paint down on the base, although that doesn't really matter because I'm going to use some flocking later. But I do want to cover up those roots, which is the main point. And if I miss something with the flocking, it just looks like earth underneath, which is perfect because it looks like I'm meant to do that, even when I don't. Once those dry, we're going to dry brush them with a little bit of khaki. And even if you go a little heavy-handed with this, it's fine. We're going to go over it again with a crisp green here in a little bit. And then I'm going to put on some more flocking that covers up some of the big boo-boos. And some wash. Can't forget the wash. The wash is very forgiving. Even if you mess up like I just did and go a little heavy-handed, it's fine. It will look great. Don't worry. Trust the process. The last layer of paint that we're going to use is called a crisp green, and we're going to also dry brush this down on our trees, kind of give it a mossy, gross look. Not necessarily more natural, because these definitely don't look natural, but they definitely don't look like what they started off as, and that is toilet paper rolls. I think it gives it more of a haunted forest kind of vibe, don't you? With this last layer of dry brushing, you don't really have to worry about getting every single square inch of this. Matter of fact, if you miss some places, I think it looks a bit more natural that way. For this step, we're going to be using some cheap glue and some flocking. Now, the flocking that we're using is called Woodland Scenics, and we bought it on discount many moons ago. Like I said earlier, if you miss some pieces, it's cool because we already have that paint down at the bottom of it. It just looks like you meant to do that, even if you didn't. Fun part, I'm just going to dip it in my tray. Yes, that is a takeout container that I'm using, but it works. I'm just using a dampened paintbrush to kind of smear the glue around. I think it gives it better coverage that way. You can also use the flocking on different spots where you feel like it's naked or that you want a little too heavy-handed with your paint. Personally, I think it makes a pretty good end product. And because I think it needs a little bit more color, I don't know the brand name, it's just some cheap flocking that I bought off of Amazon. But I thought it was pretty and it looks like flowers, so we're going to use it. And no, there's no rhyme or reason on where I'm putting it, it's just willy-nilly. If it suits my fancy, that's where it goes. Now to my favorite part, because if you've gone heavy-handed, this covers up a lot. This is just ink and water. Although you can mix a little bit of regular paint in water and get the same effect, but I like how the ink flows a little better. I also feel that it brings out a whole lot of detail that may have gotten covered up, and it gets into all the cracks and crevices and gives it more depth. And ages it a bit too, so it doesn't look so bright and fresh. And here is the finished product. If you like how it looks, please let me know in the comments below. Well, there you have it, folks. Super easy, made completely out of trash, except for the board underneath, but everything else, you get the hint. If you liked the video, please hit the like, subscribe, share the video. It helps out a whole lot. Please don't forget to check those links down below, and I hope to see y'all again next time. Bye.